Hi ho, Nation, Harry here. We are in the third lecture, college lecture as it were, our academic lecture, our Tech Talk series. It's spring quarter. Unfortunately, as you know, after winter quarter, we had to postpone spring break this year. A little bit ahead of our time because we teach only online. So we're online again. And I want to start with a little bit of trivia as I've been doing some cleaning. If you're in our group up on Facebook, you know you grew up with SBS if. You'll see I'm posting a lot of photos from some trivia as I clean things up. And so I'm wearing the hat today from who remembers this particular contest we did a little over a decade ago. I'm going to say it was 09, where we gave away 3 pizza slice cars, 3 real cars. Carl Masante won one out in Hoboken, New Jersey. This hat came from that. It was the race car theme. You got this shipped to you as a small business specialist, and there was a little model car included. Good times. Miss those contests. Let's get going. We're talking remote work and devices. And let me give you a little more context. Last night, I Zoom bombed the New York SBS group. So the user group or partner group still meets. And they invited me to drop in and Zoom bomb. And it was very interesting because A, it was on Zoom instead of in person with pizzas. And B, the topic was in fact remote work. And they had some interesting insights on the complexity of that. Harder than it looks. We'll be surfacing some of those topics with our speakers as we proceed. So we have Gary Wicca from LG, an OEM, Sue and Scott from the Christina Foundation. Gary, let's start with you. Introduce yourself professionally and where are you located today?
Oh, absolutely. Thank you for the introduction. I'm Gary Wicca. I'm the VP of Marketing for LG Electronics on the B2B side. So focus on the B2B products, and I'm in the Chicago area.
Oh, okay. Okay, cool. Sue, I think you're in Minneapolis. Please introduce yourself to the audience.
I am in Minneapolis, Minnesota right now, which is a great place in the summer, and I'm a bit crabby in the winter. But I have been with the National Christina Foundation as a supporter and a board member for many, many years, starting in about 1997. I just joined them on staff recently as their Senior Director of Strategy and Development. And prior to that, many, many years as a managed services provider myself. So this is my tribe we're talking to.
Yep, absolutely. Scott, good day, sir. Where are you located? What is your story?
Hey there. Thanks for having me. Scott Henley, Executive Director of the National Christina Foundation. It's a pertinent topic. We are a fully remote nonprofit organization with staff and board all over the country. And I'm here in New Hampshire, a couple of hours north of Boston in the White Mountains, where the beginning of bug season has begun. So mosquitoes, but thanks for having me. It's good to be on.
All right, we'll talk more about your association, your entity on one of our later slides. So guys, let's just hop right into it because there's some interesting updates. And I want to start with Gary, because you're in, when we talked the other day and we're building out the deck and rehearsing, you're doing this all day, every day, seeing the trends as an OEM. So what, let's take it from the top. What are you seeing with the stay at home now, well into its second month, and this motion of remote work? What's your story?
Well, we mentioned the other day, we're kind of having a conversation along all the industries. I think in fact 2/3 of all Americans are working from home currently. And along those lines, you're seeing more and more stats. 2 important things that we're looking at. One, what's the longevity of this? And you're starting to see major groups and a major push to say, we're going to keep working from home even after this. So even if you're the largest corporations, AT&T, Dell, they've come out publicly and announced, but you've got Twitter that says, hey, if you work at Twitter, there's a good chance that you can work from home permanently. And so along those lines, you're seeing those trends, but it goes from small business all the way to the large corporation. And then the other thing that I thought this is the most fascinating stat. So McKinsey has done a study, and the last one that they did in April, they're seeing a 39% increase in productivity for those that are working from home. So, you're going to see, I think, a large value that comes into play. And then, what does that mean? So, if you're going to be working from home, you need good equipment. You're going to see a lot of different views on that. So you've seen a, huge uptick, obviously, in people purchasing items, desktop monitors, PCs, laptops, all from that work from home. And I think you're just starting to see a few of that. I mean, you're going to see headsets and other things that are going to be important, but you're also going to see some of the trailing software, VPN. VPN just saw a huge uptick as well from a software perspective. So we're looking at all those, and I think in each industry, you're going to see different aspects of that. I mean, obviously, if you're in a factory, that probably doesn't really include you, but those that are in marketing, those that are in sales, those are kind of remote jobs that are really, very valued in that. So we're keeping an eye on that. I think those are some of the big takeaways that we're looking at right now.
Yeah. And I read the other day, I think it came out late last week, IBM released a study. I just loved it. The headline took me right in, that 54%, the headline had you believe 54% of respondents don't want to work. What it really, and that could very well be higher. That could very well be higher in life, but the headline, when you double click down into it, it's that they don't want to go back to work, right? I mean, there's a little play on words. And the point being, I get it. Look at, there's my morning office is my bed. We're going to talk about that laptop more in the third bullet point. And then my afternoon office is upstairs, and an appropriately messy office. That's how I roll. If I cleaned it too much, I wouldn't know where anything is. Did a 360 shot of that. But 54% of the people want to work from home is what the study said. And I get it. I believe it. Sue, you bring a lot of industry experience. So you were an MSP, feet on the street, doing it. You've had a lot of OEM relationships and so on. And then on the next slide, we're going to talk about what you're doing today and how that plays in. But what are you seeing with industry trends, with your contacts, with customers and MSPs along the lines of what Gary shared?
So if you take a look at, first of all, I've been working remotely for a variety of different organizations for over 10 years. So this is, I know all about the challenges and whatnot, but I specifically, my last gig was in the world of freelancers, and specifically tech freelancing. And to kind of piggyback off of Gary's stats that he pulled together here, 57 million Americans freelanced last year. That's about 35% of the workforce. And this is specific to tech, not just the overall here. So when I'm talking about this, full-time freelancers increased about 17% over in 2014, from 2014 to 2015, but 28% from 2019 going into 2020. They expect that to go up exponentially from there. And honestly, 45% of freelancing is in the skilled services environment, right in our sweet spot, in all of our managed services sweet spot. So when you start thinking about freelancing and gig work and what we might call break fix or time and materials work, that is just going up and up and up. So the need for folks to be able to not only work remotely, but be mobile in that is really critical.
Yeah. Yeah, and Scott, I don't know if you want to pitch in on some of the industry trends, and then I'm going to tackle some of these topics directly.
Yeah, I'll just say that through our lens at National Christina Foundation, the work from home thing is interesting. Obviously, we do it, and hundreds of thousands of people around the country do it, but what we're learning from the COVID crisis is that not everybody is prepared to, like, on a dime, stop their work, stop their school, go home and be up and running immediately. I think, we've talked about before separately, Harry, 22% of American households don't have computers. And
right.
And yet, the entire economy, just basically shut down, and people had to work from home if they could. And if they didn't have a computer, they were cut off from work. Otherwise, students were cut off from school, older adults cut off from banking and from healthcare. And it's why our foundation exists, to do our best to close this aspect of the digital divide. But looking on into the future, if more and more organizations do move to a more decentralized work from home environment, that is going to expose that aspect of the gap in digital equity.
Yeah, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit more about that next slide. Gary, back to you in terms of some of the quantitative data with yourself as an OEM, LG, or just the OEMs in general. What say you in terms of with the rapid deployment of remote work, sales, right? Or things going in the right direction for you? I'm assuming they are. That employers probably want to buy secure computers they can trust instead of dusty desktops that would fall more into BYOD dead.
Yeah, no, you're spot on. So I'll give you guys a little bit of the market data out there. You guys are all familiar with NPD. And if we look on the B2B side, so we won't get into consumer because that's a little bit different. You saw some sharper inclines and then it kind of fell off. But even as we look at, at the end of April, and that's the last NPD data that we have right now. But, they saw a huge surge. In fact, you saw notebook sales, we're up 75% year over year.
Wow.
A good chunk of that is Chromebooks. But even, our regular Windows notebook was up significantly. There's some other areas that weren't as high. So if you're on a traditional desktop, that was probably just a flat, area. And then, of course, think about all the work from home. People have really become used to having multiple screens. And so those shot up significantly. And so you think about the need for mobility, being able to take a laptop with you, but more importantly, then having the productivity at home. And so you've seen both of those really skyrocket. Now they peaked late March and early April, and they've kind of slowed down, but even at the end of April, still way above what you saw in 2019. So there's some areas that you're looking at, and there's some areas that I don't play in as well. But if you think about headsets, I believe the number for headsets was up 248% year over year. So if you're in the headset business, this has been an amazing time. Another fun stat, if you're into podcasting, or if you've all of a sudden had to be on these conference calls or these types of meetings right now, and you're at night, there's a big need for the podcast lighting system. So there's been a surge in that as well. So it's really interesting to see all the dynamics. But circling back up, both here at LG, the industry, there's been a huge push for the IT products. And, something that we do see across there is that, in general, you're looking for people that are, they're starting to look a little bit more on smaller ones, lighter, that are going to be portability, drive portability. This is, we kind of joke about that. You don't want necessarily the big brick anymore that you may have had to carry. If you've got to be at home, you want something stylish. And the other big trend that I'd like to share is that, we've actually seen a huge uptick with, bring your own device, people buying their own device for work for home. And so that's been a big piece of that. And I think that you're starting to say, if I'm going to buy something, if I'm a small business owner and I've got to get something, I want it to be, portable. I want it to be, sleek. And that's really kind of, where we play a lot from an LG perspective with our Graham series. So we won't get into the sales pitch, but that's definitely some of the trends we're seeing.
Yeah. And in my 360 photo on the screen, I did this for a couple of reasons. The top one I'll get to in a minute, and the bottom one is showing how I roll, with the multiple monitors. LG certainly has some reputation for that. Sue, I believe you said you use an LG monitor with the curvature. Did I get that right?
I have one of those big, long, beautiful screens, LG screens, high def, that I can put 2 and 3 rather than using 2 screens. Although with my laptop right here, I use that. But with the 2 and 3 documents side by side is my preference, and I love it. I would also say that, interestingly, as we talk about devices specific and we talk about working from home, and Gary touched on some of the, the traditionally, more media focused, and I know this is right in your area, Harry, but huge upsurges and back orders in things like, webcams and what kind of green screens and virtual backgrounds and all these things are seeing. And this is tech that's going up, but a great opportunity, and I'm sure our SMB Nation is right on top of it, is all of the training and all of the tech support that needs to happen to go along with these new devices, because they are not necessarily in everybody's sweet spot.
Yeah, exactly. And that gets us in our second conversation. Tuesday, we had our lecture on security. So folks, I want to refer you back out to the SMB Nation YouTube channel where you can see the Tuesday lecture posted on security. We had some security experts, so we don't need to recreate that, but I just, with the BYOD and the dusty desktops and whatnot, what a freaking nightmare. And I don't know if anyone wants to catch what I'm pitching.
It's an opportunity. A challenge becomes an opportunity for an MSP if they position themselves as a trusted advisor to their clients. Absolutely.
Yep. So now I want to talk hardware levels. And folks, be sure, let me do a sanity check. We're 20 minutes in. We're going to roll as long as we roll. Be sure to use the questions feature. And Jennifer Hallmark over in the radio control room will interrupt me and ask your questions. And speaking on behalf of Jenny, before we get too far away from deployments, her young daughter is now at home doing the online education thing out in Ellensburg, Washington. And Jenny has tales to tell. I don't believe she will, but it's been Jenny's not only the president of SMB Nation, but now she's a school teacher. She's doing tech support and so on. So trust me, there's some stories out there. Jenny, do let me know when we have some questions. I want to talk to you a little bit about hardware levels and what I'm living and breathing. So I am currently testing, let me get that on camera. I am currently testing the LG gram. God, it weighs a gram. And I'm going to be writing a review and popping something up on YouTube. I have this in production. I am using a different computer online today, so I can actually show you that one. And it's in the photo, 17-inch screen. And that's this morning, coffee, watching TV, to the side, off camera and so on while I work, answering emails. And a couple of things, Gary, that really stand out. One is it weighs a gram. So what that means, means. Go ahead.
I wish it was truly weighing just a gram. It is one of the lightest laptops in the market. So the one I believe that you're testing is our 17-inch, but we do have a 14, a 15-inch, a 2-in-1 as well. From the overall view is that, you're going to get more screen than you would. Think about taking a 17-inch screen and smushing that down into what you would have normally had in a 15-inch. That's one of the benefits of, LG being a leader in display technology. Along those lines, the LG gram, so the 17-inch is under 3 pounds. So that's to kind of give you some actual sense of weighing it. It's one of the lightest in the market. Up until, just a few months ago, we were the lightest, and someone came in and kind of matched us. So, I won't ever get into competition and spec for spec, but, we've been a leader there. The interesting part is that many people don't know that LG's been a leader in laptops, and really that's been a focus for us outside the US. And just over the past 3 years, we've really kind of opened that up and now have introduced specific B2B models as well. So think of additional warranty, Windows 10 Pro and a few other features that make it a little bit more manageable. So a lot of different things going there, but an amazing unit. It's gotten lots of awards.
Yeah.
And we're ecstatic that you're actually getting a chance to try it out and give us some feedback.
Yeah. And like I say, this is a work in progress. I'm not prepared to, offer much more today. I've had it a week. I've been using it, set it up. It's perfect. And one final comment about that is that because of the light weight, in the morning, when I work, such as you see in the upper right, my legs don't hurt. I don't know how to put it delicately, but some of my other computers are heavy, and it kind of hurts your thighs. Like I literally have taken that yellow pillow to my side and placed it between a different laptop and my legs just for comfort. And then the other thing, Gary, was the heat transfer. So my other laptops run hot and yours does not. And so so far so good, you know, and I like the finger log on with the fingertip on the power button. A couple other things. Let's move on, folks, and we will get you some communication on this unit in the next couple weeks. Other observations. So with the New York SBS user group last night on Zoom, they were having probably more of a business conversation, but the stories that they tell of moving clients to their home office and trying to get them set up are just amazing. So, for example, one that I recall was there were not enough USB ports on a dusty desktop that one of the client employees was going to use, their own desktop. So they put in a USB hub to increase the USB ports. And so you could have a printer and mouse, if that makes sense. And the mouse stopped working. I mean, you know, so this is the real world, right? You can't make this stuff up.
No. Not at all. We're all understanding exactly where you're at.
Yeah, and then the other thing was just today I do a Tech Tuesday segment. Now it's actually Thursday, and we recorded next Tuesday's segment today. But out of Portland, Oregon, a network called Northwest Digital News. In fact, Sue and Scott, I had you on that show last week, as a matter of fact, and we were interviewing Brian Livingston. So Brian Livingston was the creator of the Windows Secrets line in the 90s. So this is back when Dummies was coming out and Bibles. So you might recall Brian Livingston. I wrote server secrets. He wrote desktop secrets. I wish I had written desktop secrets because he sold 2.5 million copies. And that was at $49.95 a piece for IDG, and I quickly learned there are more desktop computers than servers in the world. So good on Brian. But we were interviewing him today, and his power went out, and he didn't. We realized we lost Brian and all that, and he didn't necessarily realize it because the UPS batteries were backing up his laptop and monitor and all that, but not the Wi-Fi router, right? And this is what a pandemonium looks like with remote work. I mean, there's a story every day.
Isn't that true?
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm sure, you know, with the, and we're going to get to your foundation, your organization in just a moment, but yeah, I mean, I'm sure the people in the field who serve you and volunteer have more and more stories. So let's keep it going. Again, ask the questions with respect to devices that you have. And we get to the, it's National Christina Foundation, forgive. So National Christina Foundation. So Scott, kind of back to you. What is your reason for being?
Sure. So National Christina Foundation was actually an early pioneer in the idea of technology reuse. It was started back in the mid 1980s, and the purpose over all these years has stayed constant. It's advocating for getting used computers into the hands of those who may need them most, and that it might be, you know, underserved populations, those with disabilities, veterans, you name it. And what we've done over all these years is matched individual donors of tech or corporate donors of tech with organizations prepared to receive those machines and either refurbish them or put them right into service for their populations that they're serving. And so today, what that looks like, we have a website that you can go to and type in your zip code and find nearby charities that are looking for computers, so you can do the direct contribution. Or we also provide backbone support for a nationwide network of nonprofit refurbishers that are always looking for corporate donated goods. And so, a pallet of 500, laptops could arrive, and they'll turn them around and get them into their communities all over the country. So that's sort of in a nutshell what we do. But we're a private nonprofit organization, and like I said, we operate virtually. And so this is a really pertinent topic today of working remotely.
Yeah, what I'm doing, and then Sue will get your perspective on this, but what I'm doing in that picture there, so that's in my living room, quite frankly, and I put a card table up. So been hanging out at mini storage, and too much time on my hands, so I went and found, and I still have more, but for this photo, I went and found some retired assets, some hardware assets. You got a Macintosh up on the upper right. You got some Lenovo PCs, and I think there's a Windows tablet, and then Ooma phones. Had some extra Ooma phones. Folks, you'll remember we used to give away an Ooma box at every Windows XP migration workshop we did in 2014. We did 44 of them. And the cool thing about the Lenovo thing, I mean, they served us fine. They served us well. Their day is past. But we had that combat kit, which I'm actually going to keep because I still, well, I hope to travel. I was going to say I still travel, but I hope to travel. And this thing was airline ready and locked and loaded, and it's wonderful. That combat kit was a really good idea. But that's what I'm doing, and I probably have a couple desktops to go and that kind of thing. So Sue, how, not only give us perspective on what your motion is, but how can I get these devices and the hardware into the right hands?
So a couple of different things. First, the how-to, and thank you for teeing that up for me. The how-to is you can go to donatetechnology.org. Very easy to do. So. Quick place right at the top above the crease is, where you can just type in your information. It will come right into our central hub, and then we will reach out to you and get you paired up with the correct nonprofit refurbisher that can work with you to arrange for either shipping or in sometimes pickup of a corporate donation. And understand that our network of nonprofit refurbishers are all, we have about 84 total, but we've got kind of what I would call our large enterprise nonprofit refurbishers, those that have the capacity for chain of control, that are wiping hard drives to DoD and NIST standards, etc. So that you can be confident that if you are, if you've done a takeout and you've got, from 20 to 200 to 2,000 computers, that those are going to be taken care of and distributed and wiped, and then many of them will reload them with licensing that's from not only OEMs that they work with that are paired up, and including Linux-based as well as Microsoft-based operating systems and the basic packages, but also partnerships with different carriers for internet, low and no cost internet, etc. And those areas of reuse are typically broad brush, are typically going to individuals, as Scott had said, in a variety of different places. But if I kind of go, what's that look like? It's typically going to be the low and no cost going to folks that are oftentimes averaging somewhere around 400% below the federal poverty level. So we're talking folks in great need, that if you think about your own experience of stay at home, and imagine not being able to connect, to upload, to Skype, to Zoom, to all those sorts of things, those things just aren't available to those populations that typically have utilized the gathering places, the libraries and things like that are not open for them right now. So really, really critical.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is the time where but there's some interesting goodies that I wanted to throw out here in terms of just some of the impact that has been reported back to us. And these are coming in all the time. But just to give you an idea, in this time of the I loved your little kind of pandemic pandemonium.
Yeah.
Is
I
that,
that, by the way, that's a copyright now.
well, it's copyright for somebody, whoever did it, where, you know, plagiarism is the best form of flattery or something like that. But in the past, if you think about, we're really in about 6-8 weeks, maybe 10 weeks total. But in the last 6 weeks, we've been tracking around through this network of nonprofit refurbishers, and not all of them have reported in yet because they're running around like crazy people getting all this stuff processed. But we've had about 18,000 donations move across and into the hands of individuals. So when you start thinking about, you know, 18,000 people that didn't have access now have access to that. In addition to that, we've got some specific things that are going on. We've got about 51,000 students in the Detroit area that are being supported through the efforts that we're doing right now. We've paired with community colleges, we've paired with libraries. We are also aligned with the National Digital Inclusion Alliance. And Scott could tell you a little bit more about some of the legislative language that we've not only done in the past, but stuff that we've got on the table right now. And so some really interesting stuff going on there. And we are definitely making an impact, one computer, one Chromebook, one desktop at a time.
Interesting. Yeah, Scott, if you want to add on to that, and then I have a question or two for Gary after you're done.
Sure. Yeah, and what Sue's describing is you know, definitely a joint effort with, you know, bringing together organizations from across the country. And Sue mentioned the National Digital Inclusion Alliance. They have been leading the charge on a national scale over all these weeks, advocating like crazy to get language into some of the you know, the relief bills that are coming through Congress. They've been working on solutions for broadband access. We've been working on trying to get language in, loosening up some guidelines to allow federal surplus to come to nonprofit refurbishers. The need is gigantic, and it's nationwide, and the answer is not just used. The answer is new equipment. It takes many different faces, but the bottom line here is that in a work at home environment, or if this stay-at-home stuff sticks for longer than we want, there's going to be, you know, this continued need and a continued problem of folks being completely unhooked from this ever increasingly digital society.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And Sue, let me go over to chat. And Jenny, anytime I'm kind of feeding and looking at some of the comments. And there's some good questions here. So in fact, Jenny, I'll read those. But Sue, let's put in that URL again. Actually, Jenny, yeah, donate tech.
No, donate technology. I'll put it in.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. So we have. Let's see, Mark has identified himself as computer nerd #1. That's a nice handle. If we still had CB radios, that'd be a good CB handle. Jonathan Handler, Jonathan, welcome back. On the subject of hot processors, does Harry's Graham use Intel or AMD? So Gary, maybe we'll cut over to you in terms of the chipsets that you use for your product.
Yeah, no, so that's a good question. We're on Intel 10th generation. So we are on the Intel side, and for the models that you're testing, and you know, we're excited. These are the latest and greatest. So you know, if you want specifics by model or any, you know, information, you can always reach out to me directly, and we can get you any of the spec sheets that you may need.
Okay, and we'll put your email with your permission, but in our thank you letter that goes out tomorrow. Is that okay?
That is completely okay. I'd be more than happy for anyone online to get engaged, and you know, we'd be happy to share the information.
Okay, and we'll do Sue's URL. The reason I keep writing off the screen is I think it makes me look more intelligent, like Rachel Maddow on MSNBC, who actually was an Oxford scholar. So she's always writing, and I figure, well, I'll just emulate that. Kathy Mueller is back. Kathy, thank you. So this is probably for Sue, and Kathy gets it. Kathy gets where we're going with this slide in a devices lecture is to volunteer, donate, and be good citizens. So thank you. Kathy asked, Sue, do you provide a written doc about wiping? So let's talk about security and wiping with devices.
Sure. So Kathy, great question. If you need certificates of destruction, then many of our providers can provide that for you. Just to give you an idea of kind of the process that many of our enterprise nonprofit refurbishers are using, is there is not only quarantine for the product itself, and by that I mean the product that's donated, the processes that have been put in place by our organization that we are the backbone of. It's called AFTER, the Association of Nonprofit Refurbishers and Recyclers. And their process is in place where product will come in and it's actually left in just a non-touch quarantine for anywhere from 5 to 7 days, just to make sure that, that there's no residual anything hanging out there as far as COVID-19 is concerned. That's all under lock and key. All of that new product is inside locked cages. From there, the product goes into, if it's been told that the drives may have data on them, all of them are then moved into locked and controlled environments where the drives are being wiped and certificates of destruction can be processed. They also wipe everything down, sterilize everything, and then, as I said, we'll then reload software based on the licensing that each one of our nonprofit refurbishers have, so that they can then send that out. But yes, if an organization requires certificates of destruction, we are more than happy to put you in contact with the right refurbisher that has that type of control.
Yeah, Kathy types, great old computers have sensitive information. And I want to bridge a conversation last week on Northwest Digital News. You had one of your participants, Daniel out of Portland, I believe his name was, and he talked about the Crushinator to crush old drives. Well, since we did that show, and I'm getting more organized with stuff from mini storage, I have, come on now, over writing books on computers and running a business for 20 plus years, I've got a banker's box full of old hard disk, right? And God knows what's on them. And I took, I saw a scene recently, I binge watched Silicon Valley on HBO, and I watched a scene where the guy took a Black & Decker drill and was drilling through laptops because they had a mole in their organization. And so I literally took my remote drill, and tried to drill through these little hard disks, the old chassis based, and it didn't work. So I'm going to have to go to Portland. No, that did not work. That was on TV. It worked. So.
That's those two guys that I think you're thinking of those.
Yeah, I think when the right, I'll go down and see Daniel in Portland and go to the Crushinator, so I can sleep better at night.
Right.
And then Kathy, I mean, I appreciate her enthusiasm about this topic. And what I want to tell you is, that was one of the goals today. I mean, how much can we talk about devices to MSPs that at some level know devices? It's always good, it's good to revisit the basics and the trends and what we have going on. But I have probably half a dozen computers end to end, and then some Cisco phones and Cisco parts that I'm accumulating to give to the National Christina Foundation. And then before I really reconnected with Sue, I had actually taken an old Acer laptop. Sue, you remember the story, reformatted it and gave it away to a Gold Star family in Bremerton, Washington. So a 35-year-old, now single mom with 3 kids under 12. And they were sharing, and this is the key point, they were sharing one computer for online learning. Well, that doesn't work because it's not, the online learning experience is not spaced out in a linear fashion. It's multitasking, right? The 3 have to be. That's before I met you, but I'm sure you have a lot of those stories each and every day, about the not just 0 computers, but only 1 computer.
Right. Well, and Don, Dan shared a story. I would point you back if you're interested in hearing it. Go back to the replay of SMB Nation. Sunday Digest, I think, is where we reside. But it was one family out of the Portland area, and one of the things that our partner there does is that they have a program where if any young person donates 24 hours to any charity or any good work anywhere and can prove that with, you know, a letter or whatever, that they can become eligible through this program to get a computer. And this young lady, as they were distributing these computers, tears were rolling down her face. And Dan goes up and says, wait a minute, what's going on? Are you okay? You know, why are you crying? And she said, you do not understand. You have just, this transforms my life, because they only had one clunky laptop for the whole family of a many kid families. And she was trying to get her GED. She was trying to get all of her schoolwork done, and then to share it with everybody else. And her parents and her dad, who was trying to find work. And it's just amazing when we step outside of our own. And I'm looking in the mirror when I say this, right? You know, all my tech all over my house, and I step out of that and I think, what would I do if all I had was a phone? When all you have is a phone, even, you think, oh yeah, that works, right? People are connected with phones, but there are basic things you can't do with just a phone. You can't upload a resume. Oftentimes, you can't apply for or will have very difficult time applying for any type of, program, whether that is, unemployment insurance or other. I mean, there's just a variety of things where if you do not have a desktop or a laptop or a Chromebook or something that is other than a cell phone, you got some challenges there, and it's just not going to happen for you. Can I circle back real quick to the hard drive thing, though? Because I want to piggyback off of something that that your viewer had said. So she had asked a little bit about the hard drives and certificates of destruction, the security surrounding that, which is a beautiful question, and I'm glad she asked that. I will make a plea if you are thinking about donating a computer. And oftentimes folks will, say, I'm going to donate the computer, but I'm going to take the hard drive out. And we understand that if you have sensitive information and you don't, you're a little concerned about that, please, let us know when you go to donatetechnology.org and let us know. Tell us about your hard drive. But if you do take it out, I would say, please, pretty please, with share on top, don't take the sled. Take just the hard drive out, leave the, well, I'm using a server term, but leave the sled, the enclosure in there so that we can put another hard drive in. I would also just say that when you're thinking outside the box a moment here, oftentimes, especially in a corporate environment, when we're getting donations out of the financial channel, et cetera, and insurance and sensitive, organizations like that, where they cannot provide us hard drives, then even if we've got the unit, there's still the economic impact of having to go out and, buy and procure new hard drives for them. So if indeed you're thinking, I don't have a laptop or a desktop or anything that I can help with there, if, thoughtfully consider, is there a financial contribution you could make to, let us know, same thing. We would be delighted to hear about that and talk with you a little bit more about other ways that you can help. If you have bodies or you have, technicians that are only at, right now because of what's happening, 85% utilization, and you've got some extra hours in the day and you're local to one of our nonprofit refurbishers, they may be absolutely interested in knowing that your technicians could put some, volunteer time in. So there's a lot of different ways you can help. Right now, it's just easiest and cleanest to try and look for devices, and that's what this is about. But I didn't want people to think, oh, if I don't have a computer, I can't help, because that's not the case.
Yeah, boy, Kathy is on fire over here in the questions. She says, what about the computer books too? And I'll take a stab at it and then let Sue Yun tackle it as well. Well, having written a bunch of computer books, I can tell you I have a lot of excess copies, like Microsoft Response Point, that doesn't even exist anymore. in mini storage. And sadly, and computer books in general age, right? So they don't have a long life. And then in this case, the telephone system response point went away. The best thing I've done is right now recycling is closed because of the pandemic, but I've taken it to recycling knowing that they're going to be shredded up and turned into soft, fluffy pillows in the recycle thing. And I think what Kathy was really asking about is, do you take things beyond hardware devices and that kind of thing? Do you accept books?
We don't, as a rule. We're in the device place. Kathy, just to speak directly to you, and what you're probably thinking is what Harry was talking about. I have some training books and some manuals and things like that. Know that many of our nonprofit refurbishers have programs wrap around, either partnered or they do them themselves, where they actually do training and assistance and technical support, etc., or partner with local MSPs to provide some of the resources for that. And so that makes sure that they have materials that are created specifically for the audience, which is many times very, needing basic block and tackle assistance, not probably the level of manuals and books that you would have in terms of complexity and things like that, but very much appreciate the thought, because that's a good one.
Yeah, no, good questions. Hey, Gary, back to you. How can an SMB Nation member, AKA managed services provider, but I still like the term computer guy and computer gal is still my preference. How can they work with you? How can they work with LG and get into your orbit? Do you have a partner program? Oops. See, Gary, you might be on mute.
Yep, no, you're right. I apologize.
Okay.
There was an ambulance going by, so I put it on mute so that it didn't go all the way around that. Got to take off. No, absolutely. We do have a partner program called LG Pro. So for all of our partners, they can certainly come and get engaged. All details are on the website. And then if you want to contact us, we've got contact information, and then someone either on my team or on the sales side would get engaged and give you the details and actually what it includes, and kind of what are the programs, and all of the online and offline pieces to it. So it's definitely something that we've been growing over the past few years. We think that probably one of the better ones out in the market. So thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, no, let me, well, I'll tell you what, let's do a sanity check. It's, before we know it, we're approaching the top of the hour. We're able to have some good conversations. Once again, folks, as I did on Tuesday, I want to direct you to a resource center. This is like a resource center of resource centers. Because here's my concern. Every vendor in our space has free trial and download paper and how to work remotely, and I mean, I applaud that, but it's a little overwhelming, to be honest, when you're just being and the listeners that get this, they're being hammered by dozens of vendors who are, I think their heart's in the right place. I don't think they're capitalizing on misery. I think they're trying to be helpful, but it's overwhelming. I mean, every vendor has something for you to go get for free or download. So what Kathleen Martin did, bless her heart, over at CompTIA, she's kind of created a resource center of resource centers. Or Sue, I briefly was an IT guy in the early 90s at a trade association. We belonged to a trade association, I think it's called AppSkew. It was a trade association of trade associations, by analogy. And so I do want to give a shout out to the good work Kathleen's doing. And I would start here just to maintain your sanity on what's available. Yeah. And with that said, I'm going to make a last call for questions. I think let me get my mouse back where it belongs. So folks, last call for questions before we call it good, and you will be getting a thank you email from Jenny that will have, and again, it's donatetechnology.com. Com?
Org.
Org?
ORG.
Okay.
We're a nonprofit, folks.
Okay. Apologies
No,
on
no, don't
that.
worry about it.
You'll get Gary's personal email address. And Gary, appreciate that. Appreciate you opening up a dialogue with the community. This will be up on YouTube shortly, so it's available for replay. You'll get the replay link. And we march on with our series. We're halfway through the academic quarter, so we're headed towards collaboration, productivity, IoT, and some other topics as we knock out spring quarter. Looks like the deck is clear on questions, so I want to thank each of you for taking time out of your day, both the panelists and the attendees, to join us and supporting SMB Nation. I'm going to take the rest of the day off. I was threatening that before we went on the air. I was threatening I was going to take the rest of the day off. I'm at least going to go get my lunch walk.
There you go. Hey, Harry, I got a quick question for you. You and I spoke a little bit earlier this week about the way that doing good as an MSP, it's not just about your heart, it's good for business too. And I wondered if I might just end on that note, because again, at the end of the day, we're all about trying to not only do good for each other, but to take care of ourselves and our families and grow our business and do well for our clients. And, getting great, shiny, kick, blankety blank product like what Gary provides into your customers is oftentimes part of a refresh cycle that you have going on here. And the National Christina Foundation is all about taking those used computers and resources and giving them a second use. But how does that become a business option? Well, not only is there the feel good and you're helping and the ability to write off, and talk to your clients about writing off some of that product. But for an MSP who might have a client who's in a refresh schedule that's maybe, going to be, first quarter of next year or, fourth quarter of this year, there's an opportunity to open up a conversation about accelerating that refresh schedule. We've got new, great, fabulous product that's coming out across, like what Gary has and others. But also we've got a place in a home that desperately needs some of the product that you have now. Mr. Customer, would you be interested in maybe, rolling that out and doing that refresh a little ahead of schedule, one, and two, that gives an opportunity again for the MSP to continue to add value and, maybe lock your client in for another refresh schedule and long-term contract. So just some, I'm always very opportunistic, and it needs to be a win-win-win for the customer, the MSP, National Christina Foundation, and the client. So I think there's some opportunity to really make this work for everybody. And I just, again, like I said, this is my tribe, so I want to make sure you're all doing well.
Yeah, I mean, well, yeah, let me add to that. And then sounds like you've just met Gary in our rehearsal and now our production, but y'all need to do a virtual launch. Y'all need to keep you need to keep the dialogue going. I'll leave that between you two. But Sue, what I found in my career, and really when I started SMB Nation in '99, is the more I give, the more I get. So it's not so much about living theology and all that. It might be, but for example, yesterday we announced a global mental health initiative that was encouraged by Microsoft. So it's called 1 Million Smiles, and it took about 5 weeks to put together, and we did a pilot. Simple story: SMB Nation tribal members should mail 1 to 20 greeting cards to a long list of assisted living centers we put together. And the idea is your kids are at home, have them make a card, go to Dollar General or Dollar Store and buy cheap cards. I would not recommend. Say cards are expensive. Go get the 50-cent cards at Dollar General. We did that in a pilot, and the point is that's how SMB Nation rolls. That's how I roll. But magically, with that motion, I've been hearing from some sponsors, some people that support SMB Nation. As we started making a little bit of noise, magically, there's been some outreach, and that wasn't my sole intent. Now, I'm not going to turn down financial opportunities and outreach, but that's not why we teamed with Microsoft to start this. So that's kind of the bottom line, guys, is, you know, a lot of us feel that way, some don't. It's going to happen. There you are.
Yeah.
I think
Good
about it.
people.
Yeah, I'm out of words. Jenny, thank you over in the radio control room. Kathy, thank you. And beyond, Gary, Scott, and Sue, have a great day. And let's stay in touch.
Thanks for having us.
All righty.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All righty. Bye-bye.